Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment or question comes from Mountain, and this is in response to the Ensoniq EPS16, the Fuses Restoration Part 2. And that EPS hasn't really moved much further forward since I did this video in June 2022. And Mountain writes, great video. I purchased an EPS16 rack in pristine condition. It turns on, loads and plays the samples correctly. But after 3 to 10 minutes, it freezes or crashes, reporting error 129, 131 or 137. Previous owner was the original. He says it never happened to him. Do I believe him? No. I think maybe something happened to it during shipping as the box came a bit smashed, so obviously it received some hits during the trip. Very possible, but I don't think that's what's causing the problem. Any advice where to start? Although I have a good soldering skills and all the tools, I've never repaired something like this. I guess the fuses are okay since it turns on and plays samples. No, I don't think the fuses are your problem. I've heard people saying it's dangerous to open because of the possibility of getting electric shock, even if it's disconnected. Is this true? Well, not if you ground it correctly. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Where I live, it's not easy to find a technician, so basically I have to fix it myself. Now, as I said, basically it switches on and works, not a fuse problem. Right, get that out of the way. Anything that has electricity running through it has the ability to give you a shock. That's pure physics, you know. But if you disconnect the instrument from the mains and give it a few moments for components like capacitors to discharge, then you should have no problems. And if you're experiencing this, then something is not connected correctly, and consider using an earthing strap connected to the chassis, connecting the chassis of the synth to an earthing point. Now, there have been instances in the past where things have broken and started earthing to the chassis, which you could get a shock from. But if you earth the chassis, if the chassis is properly earthed, now I don't know where in the world you are, but in the UK we have this magic third pin. We have weird plugs in the UK, so let's start with that. No, that ain't going to work because that ain't going to stretch far enough. Yeah. This will do to illustrate my point. So this is a UK plug, okay? So if you look at that, you'll see it's got 3 pins, right? So it's got the top pin, it's got a what we call the neutral pin and a live pin. Live, neutral, okay? But it has 3 pins on it, and this top pin is an earth pin. Now, depending on where in the world you are, you either have a physical socket that has that, or you have some other mechanism of earthing. So quite often, if you look at the round sockets that physically have to have something plugged into it, quite often at the top of that there is a metal strip, which is the earthing strip. But in the UK, that's the standard plug. Okay, there is no other sort of plug. That's the standard plug with an earth pin. And quite often, what you find is if you go and look in a machine that has a 3-pronged adapter on it, so what we call an IC lead or a kettle lead, depending on where in the world you are, that top pin is, or that top prong, effectively, that earthing prong, is looped and connected directly to the chassis somewhere. Wherever else in the world you are, you might not have that, so quite often a lot of equipment that was sold in the US just had 2 prongs on it, which was obviously the live and the neutral. And there was no earthing going on to the chassis, but that's how the UK is wired, and most of Europe is wired that way as well. Anyway, I digress quite a lot. Yeah, so you might want to also consider just earthing the boards, and you do that by literally just connecting to a good earth, so something that's going and touching the ground. If you connect a piece of wire to that and then go over the inside of the machine itself, you should be able to earth all the major points, so you won't get an electric shock going forward. Now, the error codes that you are talking about, these are 129 is odd address error code, 131 is illegal instruction error code, and 137 is unused vector error code. Basically, these are all software related errors and not normally related to hardware issues. So I'm surprised you are getting these. Therefore, I will be looking for potential software problems inside your synthesizer. Now, the first thing that I will be looking for here is, are the chips in the synth correctly seated? Because it could be that something is not transitioning from A to B. Now, that could have been caused by the unit being knocked around in transit. It could be caused by a number of other things. And it could be the reason why it happens after a few minutes, 3 to 10 minutes as you describe, is because it's related to a heating problem. As in, as the boards heat up, the pins expand and something loses contact with something else. So I would be looking probably. I might look at the capacitors and the voltage regulators here, although, because they are probably what's causing the heat problem, if it is a heating problem, because they're getting warm, and that would probably indicate that the power supply is not running optimally if it's producing a lot of heat, especially if the voltage regulators are heating up, because that indicates that they're having to work especially hard to maintain the voltage on the rails. So I'd probably be looking to change them anyway if they are heating up. The other thing to look for is, has it had some sort of aftermarket firmware upgrade? So you need to locate the ROM chips on the master board, and if you've got if they're soldered directly to the board, does that solder look like it came from the manufacturer, or it looks like somebody's done it afterwards? If you've got a chip holder being put in there, that probably would indicate somebody's done a firmware upgrade, which was updating the ROM chip. That could be causing you a problem because they've updated it with a ROM chip that has been incorrectly written. You might need to get another ROM chip for that. I can't say whether that's right or wrong. Basically, does that chip look like an Ensoniq chip? I suppose is probably where I would start with that. Now, there are many vendors out there on the internet that sell the ROM chips. Just make sure you go for somebody who's got a fairly good reputation. It's not just jotted up and they've sold quite a few of them. That's probably what I would say about buying these off eBay. The thing I would be worried about is that somebody has hacked the source code on the EEPROM to fix a problem or create something, or change the way a function works, and basically, if they don't know how the actual operating system works on the Ensoniq, has basically buggered it up for you. If you don't have a custom firmware installed, then the next thing I'd probably be looking at is I'd probably be looking closely at the board to see if you've got any potential what looks like dry joints. Again, that could be an indication of when something heats up, the contact loses. Now, obviously, a good indication of a dry joint is that when you look at it, you will need a magnifying glass, something like that, and you go over the board and you're looking for fine cracking in the solder. If you've got fine cracking in the solder, it's an easy thing to fix. You just get a hot soldering iron and you just apply it to the solder and it reflows it, and it should fix the problem. Remember to use a good deal of flux and I was just about to lay my hands on my flux, which is here. I use this Topnic stuff, which is quite good stuff. So consider getting a good flux, and then you can just reflow the solder. That makes it fairly easy. I think they're the places I probably would start with this. Hopefully that gives you some pointers, but to be honest, there's nothing like opening up the box and looking inside it. Again, something I probably haven't really said too much, but I've definitely said in the videos when I've been repairing the JX3P, which is sitting on the bench beside me here. Dust. Dust can cause a hell of a lot of problems. And people say, oh, well, what do you mean dust? Well, it depends on what type of dust. What do you mean by what type of dust? Well, you know, different environments have different dust. So, and dust particles can actually allow voltages to carry between circuits. So if you've got a lot of dust over a chip, for argument's sake, it's possible that dust can arc the pins. You know, so people say to me, are you really serious? I am absolutely serious. Dust in computers has caused more than one computer to go bang. Anyway, hopefully that helped you when you go into here. Just really look inside the box and look for something that, you know, possibly something that looks out of place. That could also be causing you a problem here.